Hi, I'm Greg Benz. I'm a landscape and cityscape photographer based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And in this video, I want to show you how I use the live view feature on my camera to help use a neutral density filter like this, which is basically like sunglasses for your camera. It darkens the amount of light reaching the sensor so I can use a slower shutter speed. And with that, I'm going to smooth out the water of the Mississippi River here by taking a longer exposure. But these can be a little bit tricky to set up, so I want to show how I use live view to do that. So first, just looking to the viewfinder here, we want to make sure that we can see what we're looking at. So the first thing I do is by hitting the OK button on the back of the camera, it's going to show me a preview of the exposure I'm using. So a couple things here. One, I'm at f3.5. I've got a manual lens here. This is a tilt shift lens. Most lenses would automatically be at the max aperture, but make sure you're using the maximum aperture so you can see as much as possible, and it'll give you that shallow depth of field when you're trying to focus. And then I've just adjusted the exposure here so I can see the foreground detail pretty well. And now I'm just going to zoom in using the plus key, and then I'm just manually focusing until things look perfectly sharp. So now I'm going to back out. So I've got the composition I want. Looks pretty good. I'm going to turn off some of the detail on the screen here. Actually, first I'm going to hit the info button, and so I can see kind of a grid overlay of the scene. I like the composition. I tend to use kind of the rule of thirds, the golden ratio. So I kind of like where the bridge is there. Hit it once more. Histogram's not really useful here. We'll use it later. And then I can see that the camera is level. So it looks pretty good. I like the composition that I have. So we're going to shoot from this point. So now we've got the composition we want. We've got the focus we want. And now it's okay to put the neutral density filter onto the camera. So I'm just going to take it out, and it just screws right into the front. So I'm near the edge here. Be very careful that you don't drop these. You can, if you need to, swivel the camera, put this on and go back, but you can lose your composition. So I like to leave it in place if I can. And so I'm just going to simply screw this onto the front of the lens. So the first thing you'll notice with the neutral density filter now on the lens is the image got, of course, very dark. So we're gonna have to go to a longer exposure to correct for that. And I'm also gonna be changing my aperture, so it's actually gonna get worse. So as I dive down to f8, things look pretty much black in the preview here. Now I can extend my shutter speed, so it looks like at about 15 seconds, the camera seems to think that'll be about correct. I'm actually gonna take it all the way down to ISO 64. And so it's telling me that a 25-second exposure is correct. And that may be the right exposure. I'm starting to get to a point, though, with the neutral density filter where I don't trust the meter, and I'd rather take a quick test shot to know that it's right. And the way that I like to do that is a little trick where I jump up to ISO 6400, knowing that, let's say, for example, the exposure I use with that is 1 second. Well, 1 second at ISO 6400 is the same as 2 seconds at 3200 and 4 seconds at 1600, all the way down until it's 60 seconds at ISO 100 or 1 minute at 6400. So the number of seconds at ISO 6400 is the same as the number of minutes at ISO 100. So that's a very quick and simple trick. And once I've got an exposure that looks right at ISO 6400, then I know that that test image tells me I can go ahead and switch to the long shutter, and I'm going to have a great image. So that's the way I'll approach it, and let's take a look at the finished results. So here's my final test image at 6 seconds at ISO 6400. The histogram looked good. Being that it was high ISO, the image is pretty noisy. If you looked up close, the dynamic range isn't that great, which is why the sky is a little bit blown. And then the water obviously shows too much detail. So then here's my final shot out of the camera, same adjustments in Lightroom, but moving over to 6 minutes at ISO 100, I get smooth water. There's much more color information in the sky. And then, of course, if we zoomed in, we wouldn't see all the noise because it would be a very clean image at ISO 100. And then I did make some final adjustments after this in Nik Color Efex Pro just to finish the image, but I wanted to show just a comparison pretty much out of the camera with the exact same adjustments to show how the preview using the high-speed short exposure gives us a really good understanding of what the final image will look like. So that's how I approach getting long exposure photography. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe on YouTube to get more.